The Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act was a recent legislative effort aimed at addressing crimes committed against women by undocumented immigrants that was co-sponsored by 6 Republicans. The act was H.R. 7909, which was passed with 215 Republican yeas and 158 Democratic nays. So what did this bill contain that caused a total of 158 Democrats to vote against it? The amendments to the act included that any alien convicted of or who admits to sexual offenses against children as defined by the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act is inadmissible to the country. What are your thoughts on this? Is it reasonable? Do you think that convicted or admitted sexual offenders against children should be allowed to enter our country? The second amendment made was that any alien convicted or admitting to the following crimes are inadmissible: domestic violence, stalking, child abuse, neglect or abandonment, or a crime violating any portion of a protection order that involves credible threats of violence, repeated harassment, or bodily injury. Do any of you see any problem with this? The title presumes that such offenses occur only against females, which is not accurate, especially when it comes to young boys. In spite of the name, the act does seem to protect male victims as well as female victims. There were absolutely no other changes or additions within the bill, but 158 Democrats voted against it. And the sadder thing is that millions of Americans think that's okay. Since the media is focused on repeating a narrative that illegal immigrant crime is lower than citizen crime, let's take a look at how we got into this horrible situation of being overrun by illegals. Just a little business before we dig deeper. The first issue is that the very fact that someone enters the United States illegally is a crime according to Section 8 of the United States Code, or USC, which prescribes the following penalties. First-time illegal entry, 8 USC Section 1325, is typically a misdemeanor and can result in up to 6 months in jail. Illegal re-entry after deportation, 8 USC Section 1326, is a felony if repeated, with penalties ranging from 2 to 20 years in prison, depending on criminal history or prior deportations. Unlawful presence is not a crime, but can lead to re-entry bars of 3 or 10 years. So if even the first entry remains a misdemeanor by law, how and why are over 10 million illegal aliens being allowed to enter the USA? I also want to remind you to share this video, comment, like, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber yet. My store is linked in the description. And if you want to further support my channel, I am always thankful for a super thanks linked under the video. Okay, so let's see why the Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act is one small step in the right direction. President Biden began rolling back several of former President Trump's immigration policies shortly after taking office in January 2021, including stopping border wall construction on his first day in office. The big narrative was that walls are inhumane, yet Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and Gavin Newsom all have walls or security fencing around their homes. Now maybe I'm wrong, but am I the only one that finds this hypocritical? Joe Biden also created 5 different policy changes that conflict with the law as follows. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, protects eligible immigrants brought into the country as a minor from deportation and allows them to apply for work permits, regardless of how long they have been in the country illegally. He passed DACA in spite of the fact that significant protections already existed, is the law including protections for minors who enter the U.S. illegally, particularly unaccompanied minors. Additionally, the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, TVPRA, mandates that unaccompanied alien children UAC from countries other than Mexico or Canada must be screened for potential trafficking and must be placed in removal proceedings rather than immediate deportation. There is also the Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, SIJS, when minors who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned may be eligible for SIJS, allowing them to apply for lawful permanent residency. Minors may apply for asylum and refugee status if they fear persecution in their home country. Numerous countries have always had temporary protected status, or TPS, allowing them to remain in the U.S. due to unsafe conditions in their home countries. Currently, there are 16 countries where people are allowed to remain in the U.S. under this policy, including Haiti, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Venezuela, to name a few. Donald Trump attempted to terminate temporary protected status for 7 countries, but was met with constant legal challenges until Biden took office and reinstated these countries. So there has always been significant protections for refugees who are fleeing their homeland due to oppression. Changes in enforcement priorities. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has shifted its focus away from deporting individuals without criminal records, emphasizing the removal of those with serious criminal offenses. The Biden administration ended the Remain in Mexico policy, which required asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their claims were processed in the U.S. The administration has implemented border policy changes in asylum processing and the handling of migrants at the southern border, which has led to increased crossings. In July 2021, Biden's administration moved to strengthen the DACA program. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals is a U.S. immigration policy established in 2012 that allows certain individuals who were brought to the United States as children to receive temporary protection from deportation. This is the Dreamers that the Democratic Party seems to have coined. DACA is available to individuals who meet specific criteria, such as arriving in the U.S. before age 16, living in the country continuously since June 15, 2007, and meeting educational or military service requirements. DACA recipients are granted work permits, allowing them to legally work in the U.S. for a renewable period of 2 years. While DACA does not provide a pathway to permanent residency or citizenship, it defers deportation for eligible individuals, meaning they cannot be removed from the country for the duration of their DACA status. The policy gives them 2 years of work with no path to permanent residency, so basically it is kicking the can down the road and leaving a lot of people's lives in limbo. Eligible individuals must apply for DACA, including submitting personal information and documentation to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. However, it comes as no surprise that only about 600,000 of the 3.5 million Dreamers are registered with the program. That means over 80% sit in the country willfully failing to obtain DACA status, yet they still aren't deported. What does this say about the importance of law in the U.S. to illegals? Currently, there are approximately 13.5 million legal immigrants living in the United States. Conservatively, there are over 10.5 million known illegal immigrants living in the United States. Estimates suggest that in recent years, gotaways could account for approximately 30% to 50% of total crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. From 60 to 80% of encounters were crossings outside of legal entry points. According to various reports, around 30 to 50% of asylum seekers applied after entering the country illegally. My husband Tim is one of those legal immigrants who did it the right way. Even though he was married to a natural-born citizen, his application was almost denied over a 30-year-old juvenile assault charge that occurred when he was 16 years old for punching another teen for making fun of his hair. Yet convicted murderers, molesters, rapists, and dangerous gang members are crossing our border unvetted every day. Does this seem fair to you? So far, Tim and I have paid over $3,000 in application fees, and he doesn't have citizen status. That will cost another $725. An asylum seeker is supposed to file the free asylum application, which is Form 1-589, but at least 50% of those eligible don't even file the application. A person who goes through the legal process, like Tim, receives absolutely no benefits. At least Tim didn't. The benefits for immigrants entering a country seeking asylum can vary based on national policies and local laws. However, some of the most current and common benefits often include Refugee Cash Assistance, RCA, is generally around $300 to $600 per month for eligible individuals or families, typically for up to 8 months. Refugee Medical Assistance, RMA, covers healthcare costs for about 8 months, generally valued at $1,000 to $5,000 depending on services used. Eligibility for benefits can vary by state, but programs like SNAP, food assistance, can provide about $250 to $500 per month for a family of 4, depending on income. Free public education is provided for children. Many nonprofit organizations and legal aid services offer free or low-cost legal assistance to help asylum seekers navigate the application process. Most of them get government funding. Asylum seekers can also access general health care services, which may include gender-affirming care such as counseling and therapy focused on gender identity and mental health support. Access to hormone replacement therapy, HRT, for those seeking to align their physical characteristics with their gender identity. Some may qualify for gender-affirming surgeries, including top, bottom, and reconstruction surgeries. Asylum seekers can also access general health care services, which may include gender-affirming care as part of their treatment. The cost of gender-affirming care can vary widely based on location. Many asylum seekers have limited financial resources and may also be eligible for Medicaid or other state-level healthcare programs that cover gender-affirming care, depending on the state they immigrate to. Many organizations focus specifically on LGBTQ+ asylum seekers and provide various forms of support, including financial aid for legal fees and healthcare. Local community health centers often offer services on a sliding scale based on income, including gender-affirming care. Some of these programs receive federal, state, or local government funding, so it's in a roundabout way, but taxpayers are paying for it all. So if all of this assistance is available for illegal immigrants, why are we seeing such a spike in crime and so many illegal immigrants standing in lines complaining that they can't work because the process takes too long? The fact is that they left their homes and loved ones on the promise of all this assistance after the Biden policy changes, and they aren't getting it. Not only has it hurt them, but it's hurting the Americans whose lives have been turned upside down by it. The mainstream media repeatedly refers to one widely cited report from the Center for Immigration Studies in 2018, which estimated that undocumented immigrants accounted for a percentage of certain crimes, but emphasized that crime rates among undocumented immigrants were generally lower than those of native-born citizens. Just like everything that came out of her mouth during the debate, this is total misinformation, designed to make people think that the Biden administration's decisions related to open borders has not damaged the citizens of America. Well, the fact is that the policies are destroying our country and the numbers don't lie, so we are going to take a look at the statistics published by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection webpage that will be linked in the description for your review. The fact is that the study that they are using is nearly 6 years old and based on figures before Trump's border policies enjoyed their full effect. In Trump's first year, the crime was nearly 50% of today's numbers. By the time he left office, Trump had crimes by illegals down to 15.6% of what it is in the first 8 months of 2024. This is according to Customs and Border Protection statistics. As you can see, the statistics reported by Border Protection show a 400 to 500% increase from when Biden and Harris took over. Of course, the media narrative is that their policy is working and there has been a drop in crime. What they don't tell you is that the first 2 years of this administration experienced a huge increase in crimes by illegals. So, in comparison to their own record, they have brought the numbers down from the initial effects of their open borders, but it's still 400 to 500% higher than when they took over. How people believe the media or the Democrats and rhinos anymore, I just don't get it. The information is public for everyone to see, yet the sheeple blindly believe a talking head on MSNBC. So let's take a look at the reality of these numbers that they don't want you to know about. On July 26, 2024, 28-year-old Brian Daniel Aldana Arevalo, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador, raped a child in wealthy town of Nantucket, Massachusetts. He was arrested and let out without bond the same day. The same man was arrested again on September 10, 2024. This time, he was arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, for multiple sex crimes, also against a child in Nantucket. Another Salvadoran who entered the country illegally was arrested on September 10th. 49-year-old Elmer Sola is now facing 11 charges of sex crimes against a child, also in Nantucket. If you think this unusual, you'd be dead wrong. I could provide a list of over 100 different illegal immigrants arrested for such crimes against children. But are our innocent children the only ones being affected by this immigration crisis? The answer is a resounding no. In December 2023, Kathy Heaton was killed by an illegal Haitian immigrant the day after her 71st birthday as she was bringing her trash can in around 5 a.m. She was hit at 45 miles per hour, and the impact was so bad that her socks came off before she was thrown down the street. Chunks of her hair were embedded in the windshield of 38-year-old Robinson Lewis's Chrysler. Louis said he didn't see her and he was never charged. Kathy had a family that loved her. She had grandchildren, and she had a life that was abruptly taken away and that can't be fixed. More recently, in May 2024, 36-year-old illegal Haitian Hermanio Joseph crossed the median and hit a school bus, killing 11-year-old Aiden and injuring over 20 others in the small town of Springfield. This is terrible, and the parents aren't angry at the illegal Haitian that drove illegally with no license. They aren't mad at Biden and Harris who created the policies that put that murderer in their city. Instead, the parents are angry at Trump and Vance for using their son as a political talking point in an attempt to expose this madness. The father, who just lost his son, is quoted as having said, "I wish my son was killed by a 60-year-old white man because he doesn't want people to be racist." This is the epitome of Trump derangement syndrome. It's very real. The illegal immigrant crime statistics speak for themselves. Illegal immigrant crime increased when Biden took over, and it has continued to climb. The Democrats will tell you that the figures went down in 2024, but what they don't tell you is that those figures for 2024 are year-to-date, so it's missing several months' data and will likely be the same or more than last year. Let's look at seizures on a typical day at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. 2,895 pounds of drugs are seized, $217,700 of illicit currency, seized $8 million worth of products with intellectual property rights violations, which includes items such as counterfeit and pirated goods. Daily enforcement actions averages are 1,152 enforcement encounters at legal ports of entry, 6,068 enforcement encounters outside the legal ports of entry. This does not include gotaways, and 41 arrests of wanted criminals at U.S. ports of entry each day. Imagine how many wanted criminals are not going through the ports of entry. In spite of these seizures and apprehensions, crime statistics are still at record highs under the Biden-Harris administration. And since Kamala Harris was appointed as the border czar, it basically all sticks to her. The problem is not that we don't take genuinely oppressed people. The problem is that a campaign to lure people who are not oppressed to claim asylum was launched. There are many Americans whose lives are threatened by gang violence every day. Rather than addressing our internal gang crime, we are importing more gang-related criminals. Why is it so hard to understand that until we fix the problems in our own country, bringing in more criminals is not the way to solve our gang problems? There is no place in the world that will let Americans who feel threatened by gangs or poverty move into their country without process. But the rest of the world, even people from very prosperous countries, are flooding into our borders, and there is no doubt that our country is less safe and poorer. I have linked a video of a Springfield, Ohio City Commission meeting in the description. Hundreds of residents were expressing their fears about living in Springfield since the influx of Haitians and, yes, confirming that they are eating the animals. I think we all know that they are lying when they say that it's not happening. But what is more upsetting is that government literally doesn't care what is happening to America. How do I know this? During the council meeting that will be linked, City Commissioner Crystal Brown was caught on an open mic saying that we don't give a shit. These are our leaders and we are allowing it. In addition to the City Council, Crystal Brown City Planning Board, and she doesn't care that people are sleeping in tents on the street and the city has become a living hell for residents. Crystal is also on the County Children and Family First Council, and she doesn't care that unvetted criminals are inundating their city coming from Haiti, which according to the United Nations report has unimaginable crimes against women and children. This UN report will be linked in the description as well. Crystal is also on Community Police Advisory in a city where residents are testifying that they can't leave their homes without a gun and a pit bull because they live in such fear. So who is this woman? Crystal ran as Crystal Phillips in 2021, and she is still registered as Crystal Phillips on her voting records. Yet in 2024, she is going by the name Crystal Brown. So apparently she didn't change her voting registration as required. She's a Democrat and a member of the NAACP. So my question to the people of Springfield is, why did you vote for her? This is not an appointed position. They voted for the city council that not only allowed this, but supports it and doesn't give a shit about them. I know that I put a lot of data and encourage people to confirm everything. In addition to naming the sources here, I will put them in the description. If you would like to further research, the data in this report comes from several resources including U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, Migration Policy Institute, MPI, Pew Research Center, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, academic research. I will leave you to one of the most applicable quotes I can think of. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.